So everybody's getting really hyped for Path of Exile 2. What I want to show you guys today, though, is if you've never played PoE at all and you want to get into PoE 2 when it comes out in about 2 weeks, this is going to be the video for you, especially if you've been playing Diablo 4. And if you have, I'm sorry. We're going to fix that today. So the first tip I want to give you is going to be defense, defense, defense. Everything in PoE is going to be the opposite of what you would think about in Diablo 4, especially in terms of what you're going to be prioritizing when it comes to stats on items and gear. Defense is way more important than the amount of damage you do. Everybody in Diablo 4 loves to just pump massive numbers, do billions amount of damage. Now, granted, my build right now does 29 million DPS, but still, the most important thing is that you have all your resistances capped. You're either armor capped or evasion capped, and you have some way of mitigating damage completely, whether it be armor, like I said before, whether it's damage reduction, whether it's evasion by avoiding any sort of attacks, whether it's resistances, which is 75% for the actual cap. You should always overcap resist, because there are monsters that will reduce the resist that you have, or there are suffixes and prefixes in maps that reduce that as well. So just be aware of that. Overcapping is always a good thing, but always err on the side of defense. A good example is I have a skill here that is cast whenever damage is taken. It will automatically signal for this skill ability called Molten Shell, which applies a buff that adds to my armor and can take some damage of the actual hits from me before being depleted, pretty much giving me a little bit of a buffer between getting hit and everything else. Also, health. Mine isn't as high as I'd like it to be. Yes, I know. 3571 is not really great for this kind of character where we are, but still, HP is vastly more important than everything. So in terms of order, you want to go HP, resist, any sort of damage mitigation via armor or evasion, and then basically just everything else on the board. Defense wins games. You can't do damage if you're still back stuck in town. Think of it like that. And speaking of damage, let's take a look at a couple of things here. You're going to be seeing some things which are going to be a little bit confusing to a lot of new players, especially when they realize that the language being used in PoE is very different than what you saw in Diablo. Here's a good example. This feathered arrow quiver, it says 6% increased damage with bow skills. What that means is if my bow skill does 100 damage, I now do 106 damage. That's what that means. It is additive. It is not multiplicative. What you want to look for is more. 6% more damage with bow skills means that it is 1.06 times 100. That's going to be the difference maker. That's going to be what you're looking for. When you have a good base and you have more being applied to it, it is then multiplicative beyond it. That's kind of what you're seeing here. More and increased are very different in terms of language, just like what you see in the skill tree, which leads to my next point. Don't freak out about the skill tree. Everybody freaks out about the skill tree. Take it one step at a time. Pick your character, look at what the nodes say, and then go from there. It's, again, all about language and reading what you're putting in. This node, Wicked Blade, says 30% increased damage with bleeding, 20% increased bleeding duration. So if my duration of bleed is 10 seconds and I increase it by 20%, it is now 12 seconds of bleeding. If it's 30% increased damage with bleeding and it's 100 damage per bleed, it is 130 damage now with the 30% increased. So if it was more damage, it would be multiplicative. That's how you know. So think about what you're going to pick. You've got your regular nodes here, then you've got your notable passive, and then you have things like keystones here, like Vol Pact. Life Leech from mana damage is instant, cannot recover life other than from Leech. That means I cannot use a life flask. That means it's irrelevant to use a life flask. I can only heal when I deal damage from my melee attacks, but it is instant. The reason why I didn't pick this is because I like to have an emergency flask just in case, even though my character does in fact already leech on its own. You kind of have to think about how you want to play and what you want to do. So remember, defense wins games. You want to make sure you understand the language, and don't freak out when you see a lot of really complex mechanics. Those are the top 3 things people really fail at when they jump into PoE. Another big thing that people really just don't understand sometimes is uniques. Although they are great, people really talk about them like tier 0 uniques or tier 1 uniques. Uniques are not always the best item to have in your gear. Trust me. Uniques are mostly used in ways of trying to either create synergy between specific aspects of what you're trying to do in your build, or they are build defining. Here's a great example. Ralakesh's Impatience. It says, count as having maximum number of endurance charges, frenzy charges, and power charges. As you can see here, I have affliction charges. I'll show that in a second. Here are frenzy charges. Players gain more damage and increased attack and cast speed for each frenzy charge they have. Now mine are automatically going to tick up every couple of seconds. I'll have a maximum of 8. So I will have 8 times whatever I have here for the increased attack and cast speed per frenzy charge. Now, what these boots do is, even if I had 0 frenzy charges listed above me and I had none of them swirling around me, all of my attacks and all of my damage would count as if I had 8 of those frenzy charges, as if I had 8 of power charges or 8 endurance charges. We don't have to go into exactly what these specific things do, but that's what I'm talking about. Uniques are more build defining than they are just rares that have better stats. Just because a unique is there, it also doesn't mean that it's the best piece of item for you to use. Here's a great example. Before I was using an axe on my other skill for sweep. This axe technically does more damage than my unique sword. However, though, my unique sword increases global physical damage by 448%. On top of that, it increases it again by 30%. But the thing is, it increases my area of effect of attacks and my attack speed. This axe does some other great things too. Increased chance of bleeding on hit, increased physical damage, and the tiers of modifiers are pretty high, tier 2s and tier 1s across. So really, this axe, if I was an axe build, would be far superior than this sword, even though the sword is a unique. And we talk about build defining, we're going to talk about this unique as well, Alessia's Delight. Modifiers to minimum frenzy charges instead apply to minimum affliction charges. Those things change. Remember what I said, Ralakesh's Impatience gives me maximum of whatever I have. This turns it into a different kind of charge. What does this charge do? Players gain more damage with ailments and more effect of non-damaging ailments for each affliction charge. So even though I have less physical attack speed per frenzy charge, I'm doing more damage per ailment, which is a bleed, for each affliction charge. That's how you have to look at things. How am I going to build my gear? What am I going to look at? And just because something is a unique, it doesn't mean it's going to be the best thing for me to use at that moment in time. In fact, it could be a detriment to what I'm using at that moment in time. And that's really important to notice. Let's talk about stash tabs, because everybody says this game is pay to win or pay for convenience. It's not. You don't. You don't need a stash tab. You don't have to buy these stash tabs until you're at least at the end game. You can play all of PoE 1 and all of PoE 2, all 10 acts, go through the entire campaign, have 50 hours of playtime, and never have to buy a single tab. It is not necessary. You don't have the items for it. You don't have the currency for it. You don't need it, okay? So you can literally play this game for free if you'd like to. However, the regular tabs that you get, which are 4 of them in PoE 1, I'm not sure how many you get in PoE 2, you can apply an affinity to these tabs, which means if you want this tab to be all currency or all specific items, you have them here as well. So even if you're like, ugh, I don't want to sort all my currency in my tab, you can just apply that affinity to that tab and be good. So now the better question is, Alex, what tabs should I in fact buy? Well, here's the first thing. I would buy a bulk stash tab to allow for trading if you're not going to play solo self-found, what we call SSF. So if you are going to be playing a trade league, you can buy a trade tab. There are bulk tabs you can buy as well, but just one standard quad tab should just be fine for trading if you want to do that. You can also get what I feel is going to be the best tab to buy is the currency tab. This will automatically sort all of your currency and show you what kind of currency you have available for you, and even give you miscellaneous slots as well. It's really easy to do, and you can trade directly from this tab if you'd like to trade from this tab. The other one would be the skills tab. Just makes it easier for you to find skills. Personally, that's what I like. Divination would be the other one, just for specific cards, and maybe even essences if you want to do that as well. All these other ones you do not in fact need. I turned this one into an Abyss tab. I turned my regular stash tab into a Legion tab because there aren't any of those for those specifically, but then I can just go ahead and put those items there if I want to. So again, you don't need every single tab. A unique tab is nice to see what's there, but you don't really need it because unless you're hunting for specific uniques, it's not going to be there. Just be aware of that too. Now, before we get into the next set, I got to be very clear about this. You're going to be seeing a lot of wacky stuff in global chat. Pretty much what you see all the time over here, everybody just talking a bunch of garbage or just saying F in the chat when somebody gets sent to the void for doing a map that they shouldn't be doing. If you see anyone saying, hey, RMT, selling divines, X for X money, anything like that, don't do it. Don't RMT. Don't do a real money transaction. There are YouTubers as well that will say things like, here's my YouTube video, buy my guide on my website, and then you can buy currency from me too. Just don't do that. Don't ever give someone money for a build guide. You shouldn't do it. Just don't even do that. How about this? Don't give anyone money besides GGG. That's pretty much it. Unless you're going to buy it directly from Grinding Gear Games, don't give anybody any of your money. The reason why I say that is these guys love to shut down cheaters. It's their favorite thing. Grinding Gear Games is notorious for slamming down cheaters and people manipulating a lot of things. And we've had this happen before because there is a massive economy in this game. When I tell you there is a massive economy, there are people who are stockbrokers and actual financial advisors that play this game, that all they do is they sit on this next website that I'm going to show you, and all they do is trade currency and items for other currencies just to become rich in a game in a season. I shit you not. This game is insane. You can go that route if you want to. You don't need to, but there is that option for you if you want to do that. So when I tell you not to spend money on anything in this game, besides giving money for stash tabs, or if you want to give Grinding Gear Games extra money on that, that's the only place you should give people money to. Don't RMT. There's no need to buy any sort of currency. You can do it all just by playing the game normally. I promise it's going to be okay. Let's talk about pretty much the best thing that happens in PoE, and it's third-party applications. I know, not everything is in-game with Path of Exile, and probably not going to be with Path of Exile 2. But there are a lot of great third-party applications that you can use in order to make sure that you're getting the most out of this game that really help you across the board. One of these sites is PoE Ninja. Why do I like this site? Mostly because it'll give you an idea of what other people are doing in their builds if you're trying to play that same kind of skill, or it'll also give you an idea of what people are doing and if you want to try that build out for yourself. So right now, 16% of the entire player base is playing Slayer, 17% is playing Trickster, 13% is playing Hierophant, then Chieftain, then Jug, then Glad, then Necromancer. So you can see the majority of what people are playing. And if I click Slayer, it's going to be Lightning Strike. That's what everybody's playing. It's just going to be Lightning Strike. That's what everybody's playing this league. That's 40% of everybody who's a Slayer is playing Lightning Strike. You know what I'm playing? Sweep. Less than 0.0% of people playing Sweep? Let me see how many are playing. 0.7% of the entire player base is playing Sweep. It's probably just me. Me and like one other guy. So this is a good way of like figuring out what kind of class you want to play, what build is being popular, what you want to take a look at. And also what's really cool is if you are someone that is like stuck on a build, you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go next, here's a good way of doing it. This guy's name is Spinning Top. He's doing 35 million damage. I can click his profile and I can see the gear he has to figure out, okay, how is he doing this? What gear is he using? What's happening? How do I figure this out? What's going on here? And then go from there. And here's another thing too. If I want to open up his path of building, I can do that. And that goes to my next point. Path of building is one of the best things to ever be made. It is basically just theory crafting in Path of Exile without having to spend any of your points inside of your tree to figure out if anything goes well. If you see a build online and you say, hey, how do I get your build? What do I do? They're just going to say, check the POB link in the description. They're not going to tell you anything. They're not going to say anything else. Here's my build. Here's how it performs. Here's how I got it together. If you want it, there's the POB. And you're just going to click that link and you download this application and you're pretty much all sent there. The cool thing, though, is that website POE Ninja is directly connected to Path of Building. So you can go ahead and say import code from Path of Building. You can click that. It'll open up a POB if you already downloaded it, and go from there. It didn't do it that time because I didn't click it the right way because I'm stupid. I'm not bright, okay? I'm dumb. I'm really dumb. And the reason why I like Path of Building so much is because it's going to tell me exactly how much damage I'm actually doing, what my effective hit pool actually is, all the great things, how much resist do I have, if I'm overcapped, what my DPS is, what my energy, all those really small, intricate and details of information is all going to be here in the Path of Building. You can even share it with your friends. They can see what you're doing. You can give them access to that account, kind of a deal. It's always really easy to do because that way you've got everything here all together. You can see exactly how your character is performing. Now, here's why Path of Building is so much more important, though. As you can see, combined DPS or full DPS, 29,817,531. That's what my sweep attack is doing, right? Let's see what it actually shows in game. Now, in game, my sweep skill is doing 256,000 damage per second. Why is it doing that? Mostly because it's not counting all of the additional things that I've applied inside of my skill tree or part of my gear or anything else along for that matter to put everything together as how much damage I'm actually doing, which is why the POB or Path of Building application is so incredibly important for new players to learn and understand. Now, I will be doing a video about how to use the POB. That'll be the next point of topic here as well, so stay tuned for that. But you want to get a POB, you want to use POE Ninja, you want to take your time, you want to not spend your real money on anything that shouldn't be sold by Grinding Gear Games, and you just want to explore the game and have fun. Now, this is in Path of Exile 1, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be in Path of Exile 2, but this is the open help panel. Everybody skips this. Nobody knows it's here. It's the smallest button here, but nobody knows it's there. This gives you incredible information and detail of everything in the game, how regular skills work, how supports work. It even provides you with information and actual videos of things happening. It even has skill gems too, the skill tree, the notables, the keystone, what rarity tiers you have, how they work, stats and mods, flasks, your stash, waypoints, ailment, like everything here from a beginner's perspective. If you're having any concern, this is going to be the place to go. Now, if you want an even deeper explanation of things on how things operate, there's another website for you to go to, and that website is poewiki.net. Do not go to the fandom version of this. I got to be very clear about that. If you go in the search bar and you type POE Wiki, you see this fandom one? Don't do it. That's not the one. This one usually shows up first for me. Don't do it. It's poewiki.net. This is the one you want to go to. This is the one that is always updated. This is the one that always has everything that you need. And this is the skill that I'm using, Sweep. It gives you all the functionality of the skill. Guaranteed chance to knock back on hit. Interacts with Empire's Grasp. So it even tells you other uniques that are applicable for this skill. It tells you the level and experience of each specific level of that gem. It even tells you how you can acquire it. It tells you recipes that you can get from it. It tells you if it's a quest reward. All the information that you want here is here. Also, like if you just want to search endgame content like Breach, it gives you all the information you need directly. So like the frequency, the items, the splinters, the breach nodes. So if you ever want like direct main information, this is the place to go. poewiki.net. Don't go to the fandom one, go to this one. And the last tip I want to give is just a personal one. You're going to see a lot of content creators and a lot of people taking time off of work or spending their entire life dedicated to this game. Don't. What I'm trying to tell you is don't optimize the fun out of Path of Exile. The beauty about this game is discovering what it has to offer and the breadth and the depth of what this game provides on a consistent basis. Simply following what somebody else does and simply just doing what they're doing and copying their footsteps after the thousands upon hours they put into this game is never a fun time. That's for me personally. Don't try and compare yourself to someone who's played this game for 11 years plus. Don't compare yourself to someone who's played this game for 6 years plus or 1,000 hours. I have 1,200 hours in this game just on the Steam client alone, probably another 600 hours before it hits Steam. I'm still considered an intermediate player. So trying to keep up with people is like trying to drink water out of a fire hose. What you want to do is just read what the game is telling you to read, presents its language to you. If you have any questions, use PoE Wiki and just enjoy the process of learning and discovering. That's what makes this game fun. That's what everybody enjoys about this game. This is not a difficulty check of a game. This is a knowledge check of a game. And the way you get better is by knowing more of what the game actually has and how it provides and what items you can get from specific mechanics or how you can abuse certain mechanics in game. The only way you learn is by doing. Just have fun. So ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for today. There's 10 tips for beginners if you've never played Path of Exile and you want to start jumping into PoE 2 in a couple of weeks. I hope this was really informative for you. If you do want to see my Path of Building guide for this character specifically, it's in the description down below. I will also have links to the other websites I've talked about in this video as well. And as always, if you want to go ahead and see more of this kind of content, even more content about anything ARPG, including Diablo 4, Torchlight Infinite, Diablo 2, Path of Exile 1 and 2, Last Epoch, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you next time.